Hi, I'm Pam Hayes from Hayes Sewing Machine Company, and today I'm going to talk to you about an embroidery technique doing applique. So the technique I'm going to show you how to do is called tack and trim, and the design that I'm taking this from is Fancy Stitching Forever. It is done by Smith Street Designs. It has the information in it, and it has the designs on a CD. So what I did is I took my designs that I wanted to work with and I put them to a USB stick, and I'm working with a baby lock, so the format that I worked with is PES. And I'm going to show you how to do this center square. So you can see that you can have some fun. You can have some really nice things. I went very bright for this particular piece. I'm going to actually make it into a pillow. And today I'm going to show you how to do it in blue. So basically, stabilizer. If you work with a stabilizer that's a tearaway stabilizer, you're going to have to kind of sit and tear it, and it's going to be a lot of tearing. So something to be, aware of is you can get stabilizer that will melt away. And when you're working with it, if you're doing work with Solvay, it is basically called Fabri-Solvay, and it's any fusible or it's a mesh that will dissolve. That's what you're looking for. So that's what I've put in the back. And then you want a piece of, they call it muslin. It could be any cotton material. I would recommend that it is not particularly interesting because you're never going to see it. It's going to be inside. And if you're working with kind of paler materials on the front, I wouldn't do red because it's definitely going to show through. Okay. So I have regular thread in my sewing machine, and we're going to talk about, we are going to use all of the regular thread when we're actually tacking things down. All right, so let's get going. I have started with step number 1. This is just to give you the idea. You can see how it almost looks like a bow tie, almost, but not quite. We're going to be watching it. So this is the first color. It stitches around. We are going to have 2 sides that, in my case, I'm going to do the same fabric. They'll tell you the dimensions in the instructions, but basically it's 3 inches by 6.5. When I line this up, I'm going to place that down. Make sure it's covering the straight stitch. Make sure your foot is lowered, and at this point, hit start. So we're going to line this up. It's going to do my stitching for me. You can use spray adhesive, but honestly, I just kind of stroke my material a little bit, and it really shouldn't do anything strange. All right, so it's done just that quickly. Now, what is wonderful with the machine is it goes to do the next trapezoid on the other side. Could I take my hoop off and trim the first one before I sewed the second? Sure, but absolutely no need because they're not going to touch. So when we line it up, we're not stitching over top of one another, so I would just lay that piece down. Lower the foot again. You'll notice I have my green start button, so I just hit my start at that point, and away I go. Again, regular thread would be absolutely fine when you're doing this section of it. I wouldn't do something that was a high contrast. So for instance, if I'm doing pastels, I'm not necessarily going to use black thread because you will see it, have a chance to see it a little bit. I am done. Now the machine, if you take a look, it wants to get set up to do the 2 top sections. However, I need to trim. So I take my applique scissors. Could I use just small scissors? Sure. But the applique scissors that have the curve, that is going to make life really simple for me. The key to it is you're going to have the scissors down on the base, and we're just going to go and we're going to trim all the way around. So again, we have when we're trimming, we want to have as close basically as we can possibly get. You're going to see that sometimes people will say, well, I'll trim to like a 1/4 inch and then I'll go back and trim a little closer. You're going to find that it's makes it more difficult to do. So I will line this up and away I go. Now, something to be aware of, if you wanted to use this and you were going to wash it and you wanted this to be fused on, be aware what I would do before I placed my blue, in this case, material down. I would iron my fusing agent to the back. Make sure you take the paper off before you go and you place it down in your hoop. And then, ta-da, we're good to go.
Very nice.
All right.
So better to trim a stitch rather than not be close enough.
That's correct. Line this up, slide it back in, and now we're on where it's going to do our placement for the top and the bottom. So I lower the foot, and it's going to stitch for me. And it's going to tell me where I should be placing my other 2 pieces of material. Alrighty. Once it's done this color, if you take a look on the screen, see I was showing you the trapezoid that's up at the top. And you'll notice your machine kind of moves itself there. So this is the fabric I'm going to use for the top. Again, lay this down. You want it to cover your straight stitching. And we're just going to sew. Actually, we're just going to hit the button and the machine's going to do all the work for us. Alrighty. And now we're going to do the same thing on the bottom. So I'm just going to stitch across. Again, if you're worried about it, you can do a little bit of spray adhesive, but I find just kind of sitting with it. This is definitely a time I do not leave my embroidery unit. All right. So now, we're going to do the same thing I did just a second ago. I'm going to trim around the outside edges of my shape. Again, try to get as close as you can. And we're going to do the same thing on the other side. All right, slide my hoop back on. That's the thing you'll forget to do. You'll forget, and then your machine will come and say, attach the hoop. You'll notice I have a square, and that's going to fill the center. Now, something to be aware of. I have chosen a lighter weight or a lighter color material. So you can see that if I put it down, I can kind of see the darker fabrics I have in the back. Little trick, do a double layer. If you do a double layer, less likely that's going to show through. So at this point, I've been talking so much, I just want to make sure, yes. All right, we're going to do our straight stitch.
You need to thread your needle.
Thank you. That is the one thing, because we're taking the hoop on and off quite a bit, that sometimes you can unthread your needle. So we're just going to make sure that it's threaded. Gotta love having needle threaders. Makes life easier. All right. We're going to put our fabric underneath. Make sure you're covering your straight stitch. All right. So now, at this point, we are going to trim the square that's in the center. All right. So now when we line this up, take a look on the screen. You have a lot of different color choices that you can work with, and they're showing you, like for instance, this one's going to do the center section, and I'm going to start to change and do my different pretty decorative threads. So the thread that I was working with is just a basic cotton thread, and if I want to do work with, see, this is my problem, choices. Let's do a pretty color in the center. All right, so we're going to line this up and we're going to thread it. Now you'll notice when I thread, my preference is to cut my thread at the spool and then pull it down through the eye of the needle. If you can, that's always a great way of doing it. All right, so now we're going to do this color.
And what kind of thread do you have in there?
I have a rayon 40 weight. It's done by Sulky. And let's just rethread that real quick. And if you can't see it, this is a time where it is legit that you can pull it back out. And I'm just going to slow my speed on my machine down a little bit. If you need to ever go back, most machines have the ability to go back a little bit for you. And it's going to go do all my pretty corners for me. Now, something to be aware of when you are doing your washing out on the washable stabilizer. And I'm going to stick with the pretty in the center, so I'm just going to lower the foot and hit start again. I just soaked this for about 20 minutes. Okay, so you'll see it's fairly flexible, which is great. But if you wanted it even more flexible, soak it for like 2 hours. Okay, but do yourself a favor. You'll feel how this is kind of still nice and stiff. Don't soak one portion, and then have the others not finished, not soaked. If you're going to put it together, like I did here, make sure they're all not soaked, and then when you take it, you're going to soak it in water, and then it'll soften up. So really, only thing you'll have is the thread of the stitches and the 2 layers of material. And it's going along, and you can make this as elaborate or as simple as you want. I chose to do the 2 colors here, the same for the center. And now then we're going to go, once it's done this one, it's going to go and do the orange. And just think, they used to do all this by hand. Pretty, a lot faster.
Really, if you wanted to get 3D dimension, you could like hand sew a little bead on top of each one of those little bumps. And
absolutely. Yeah, little beads.
Lots of possibilities.
You can put a pretty button in the center when you're done at the end. Yep. A lot of nice options. All right, has one more little guy.
Can we pause so I can go in and really?
Yep.
How gorgeous that is.
There you go. Let me pull it forward for you. And look at that.
Isn't that gorgeous?
Pretty.
Awesome.
All right. So now at this point, take a look at the screen. It's going to do the top and the bottom. So let's take a look. See, remember, I'm going to trim up at the top and pull my thread through. And let's go for a green. Pretty green. So again, we're going to go bring that down and just hit start. Back to the stabilizers for a moment. Again, the wash away, which is what I'm doing, I've done in my pillow that I'm going to make, or what I have in here. It's just a nice option for you. You can also, remember, use a tear away. These would be great, as far as I'm concerned, to make like a pincushion. So it has a lot of nice options. You can also back it and have it as pocket. So there's a lot of nice different things. You don't have to be as ambitious as the front. That is a stunning quilt though. You can really see a lot of beautiful. So what I've done is I've kind of taken that center section. I have taken it off of the wall hang, the fancy stitching wall hang. So I have done this center section. And it's mesmerizing. I could watch it work all day. All right, so it's finished this one. Now, something to kind of know, that if you did a color and you didn't think it was actually showing up as much as you like, if it's going to do another color in that same area, do it again. Because a lot of times it's going to restitch over top of it and kind of give it more added depth to it. All right, we're just gonna re-thread this. And remember, we're gonna hit the minus, and I'm just gonna go back a couple. All right, I'm going to finish sewing this out, and I will be back in just a second. All right, we are finished. We have finished embroidery, and isn't that spectacular? A lot faster than my handwork, I can tell you that. Okay. If this is the only block you're doing, and you're doing Washable Stabilizer, trim it up, give it a soak. Hope you enjoyed.